Welcome on this scary session with a happy end. I don't know if this slide is still actual, but it was in the template. You can evaluate the session and somehow you can try it if you are bored. My bio, I absolved Master of Computer Sciences in the University of Western Bohemia. I'm watching Jakarta EE or Java EE for many years. Sometimes I had to interrupt somewhere, fix something or so. We have some 35 slides, so I will skip the rest. How to create unmaintainable project. You can find maybe 100 excuses or arguments for this, and finally you succeed and you create unmaintainable project. A very favorite quote between developers is that when you discover you are riding a dead horse, the best strategy is to dismount, but nobody says what's next. Customers use that. They ask for support. They don't want to leave because it worked, so why they would leave? And you are just gone. That's the question. First critical thing is your hardware, nothing else. And software, you use editors, browsers, local servers, compiler tooling, containers, operating system tools, JDK tools, and everything needs CPU and memory. In corporations, I see that often, even in these days, you receive something like laptop with 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM, and they expect you will develop something. You have to say something or buy your own computer if it's possible, but to succeed. Yeah, this is example from completely other business. These people are not usually too rich, but their professional tools are much more expensive than yours. So something to think about. Projects, hardware and software is another issue. Open source development costs money too. You use servers which are somehow sponsored by somebody to help open source. Just consider the amount of technologies you use. It's quite a lot of money in that. And some are commercial, some are not. Okay, if you need something, somebody already invented it usually. So you can try to look for some tools already existing. You can extend and fix them. Those teams are usually happy for the help and share your love. Threats, metaphors and buzzwords. I have seen many arguments about words. People often spend time with them, but you should not spend too much time with metaphors like technical depths. It's usual metaphor to understand that you missed something in the past and you should do that in the future. That's the whole meaning. Zombies are usually hidden in your suitcase. Everybody knows they don't exist, but it's a useful term. We will talk about it later. Just think about those terms. Benders and narrowers, workarounds. I think this explains a lot. Basic unit of temporality is usually the eternity, so once you do the workaround, it is forever until somebody kills it. Premature optimization. Some people love caches. They think too much forward without testing, and they cache everything. And finally, managing caches and maintaining them even in source code, even in runtime, costs some time and resources. Same applies to logs, thread pools, asynchronous operations, cloud clusters, whatever. It can be helpful, but it brings some costs. Cheap Everyone remembers those editors in ASCII 20 years ago, and they were capable quite many things, some of them even on the poor hardware of the time. I don't want to go too deep into that, but sometimes things can be done much more simple than we think. We tend to think too complicated things. Another first trap on GlassFish we resolved when I came. White spaces, mixed tabs and spaces, it complicates diffs, it complicates formatting, and everyone screams when you create pull requests. So I created this script and run it a bit customized on several projects, and it saved time in the future, quite a lot of time, just some 50 lines and 1 minute or something. Then you don't want to bring it back again, never. So you add check style to your project, and it ensures that the build on Jenkins fails when somebody does something which would bring the project back, step back. Then there's PMD. Nobody knows. It's really old project, and nobody knows what does it mean. So the team tries to find some meanings. Actually, it's still maintained, and it's quite useful to be added to the build. It's on our to-do list. Same applies to copy-paste detector, which forces you to refactor things because it shows you that something was copy-pasted, and then you see the pattern, so you extract some parts, and then it forces you to think about what is the meaning of the code, what the object should do, and it improves the quality much more than one would expect. Spot bugs, years ago there was a project find bugs, then it seemed that it will die, nobody wanted to maintain it anymore, and then something happened, some contributors came and renamed it to spot bugs, and it's developed again. Another, it was already used in GlassFish, but it wasn't enabled on Jenkins, I think. There's many exclusion files, so workarounds. Another true. Java code coverage plugin is now standard component in Eclipse IDE. I think everyone uses it somehow who works with Java. The problem is with integration tests, and especially with GlassFish, because you would need to update the domain XML or somehow configure GlassFish. It can be done, but we want to simplify it in the future. It is able to merge results. Eclipse is able to load those results, and even now you can watch what is covered by tests and what is not. Java code coverage, usual discussions. SonarCube, another tool useful. This is my personal account on SonarCube. It is quite strict, so we have quite a lot of work to do on GlassFish. It doesn't look so optimistic, but sometimes it is not right. It is a tool, not acceptation test. Yeah. Sorry. Snake, that's quite a young tool. It can be enabled on GitHub, and it analyzes your repositories and finds CWE bug, common weakness errors or evidence. I don't know what is the operational. It offers some recommendations what you should do with the code. GlassFish archaeology. Now we go to GlassFish. GlassFish started somewhere in the 90s. Even now there are classes which were created at the time, and in 2017 it seemed it will die. Just some states and companies still used it, and they were looking for solutions, and even now they are still looking for solutions. Some are migrating to Spring Boot, some migrated to Pyara, some stay still with GlassFish, and now they are asking us sometimes. Sorry for that. Oh. Okay, I'm back. Now it seems GlassFish survived its death, and we are pushing it forward, paying all technical debts and pushing it back to production. Now it can be used on productions, but we need to cover, for example, clusters by tests and improve yet many things. It will be just better and faster. You will see some screenshots. I mentioned that it was around 800 commits per 1 year or so, and now I'm sure it's over 1,000. So the evolution goes quite fast, and we are faster than time now. Omnifish offers commercial support for GlassFish. There are yet other companies offering that, and we are looking forward for Jakarta 11, Java 21, and GlassFish 8 is in our plans. I will mention yet something. We created new Docker image. There was one on Docker Hub created by AWS, but it is abandoned, and now we have another new image on our account, compliant with our Docker Hub rules and best practices. And this is an example how fast it starts. It's for the monster old 20 years. It's not so bad as someone would expect. Everyone remembers how everybody hated enterprise servers, so it's quite fast, and it will be even faster soon. Test containers, that's I will say it's a new tool, but it is here maybe for 8 years or 10 years. It has some issues with the support on Windows and Mac, but it is resolvable. Everything is resolvable now. Best is to be used on Linux. First usage in GlassFish was because we wanted to run TCK tests directly from GlassFish, not waiting on Jenkins somewhere, and then to run it anywhere where we want. We have our own Jenkins, sometimes we use it. And I needed mail server because some tests need mail server, so to be able to run it on my local machine, I use test containers to install, to run the mail server in the Docker image. And then we continued. This is an example for simple test with GlassFish. You can use Omnifish, GlassFish, Docker image, and this just downloads the welcome page and checks if it contains expected content. But Eclipse CI, Eclipse Jenkins doesn't support Docker containers out of the box, so we created GlassFish test environment to run similar tests even without test containers. And then it uses system hooks to ensure that GlassFish is shut down. The advantage compared to Cargo, Maven plugin, or your custom solutions is that it can be executed directly from Eclipse IDE or IDEA or whatever you want to use as an editor, which supports JUnit. It's completely just JUnit. Yeah. it has less possibilities than test containers, because with test containers you can configure also a virtual network, and you can attack it somehow, corrupt network connections, and watch if connection pools are able to survive somehow or resolve the issues, roll back transactions. You can check what the database will do behind if you disconnect it from the server, because when you have transactions in behind, there's still communication with the database. What happens if it breaks? That's quite new space. GlassFish builds. We added some profiles to make it much simpler, because sometimes you need manual testing. So this is the fastest time to build GlassFish with everything built to get the zip file from the scratch. The time expects that you already built it before, and your Maven cache is full of dependencies. With all tests, it takes some 11 minutes, and with all tests, including UNT tests, it takes around 2 hours. It depends on your hardware. TCK tests are you will never run all TCK tests on your machine. You will wait maybe 2 weeks to finish them, but it will succeed probably. Yeah, it's quite standard Maven project. Original GlassFish had always issues to find all subtrees and reactors. Now it's just Maven. I call this zombie army because it's all these old tests. Their development started somewhere in '90s, and they test nearly every feature one by one. It creates a var file in UNT, deploys it to the server, undeploys it, and it takes too much time, but it still verifies functionalities. We are slowly migrating that to Maven, which is much faster, and it's around 5,000 tests. So, TCK runner, I mentioned that we wanted to reproduce issues when we were racing to be the first compliant Jakarta E10 implementation. We wanted to reproduce all failures locally. Therefore, I created TCK runner, which uses the zip file with TCK tests, with those old UNT TCK tests, and runs it locally. The TCK team now works on refactoring of all those integration tests to split them to specification tests, and it should be finished in Jakarta E11. They often ask for help. If you have time, you can help them. GlassFish pains. Yeah, technical debt. Too many integration tests and too few unit tests. High modularity without unit test, because when you change something, you really have to ensure somehow that it's still compatible. Interesting thing, when I was refactoring some tests, I discovered some tool to test the core of the GlassFish with EJB support. For 20 years, everyone hates EJB because you developed application and you will not be able to test it with unit tests locally without application server. Something like fast tests to get the result as SAP. And it is there, just the technology is about at some 70% of way to finish the tool for 20 years. JMX support, deployment library, I have to speed up, okay. GlassFish treatment, yeah, we started fixing first tests, and then everything else. We noticed that we can optimize something. We migrated from JUnit 3 and 4 to 5. Deployment module is much faster than before, even when it still uses the slow XML parser. Logging, we completely rewrote logging to use system logger. that's not finished yet. It's to do. JNDI was based on strings, now it's based on JNDI simple object, or I forgot the name. Authorization and authentication was cleaned up, but many things, class loaders were an important thing. They are too faster. GlassFish built Maven plugin, it has custom lifecycle for Maven. If you noticed in the build those GlassFish jar files, it improves the build somehow. I will not go for details. Yeah, current tests, Jenkins now verifies that GlassFish compiles also on other Java versions. Recommended version is Java 17. For GlassFish 8, it will be 21. GlassFish health report, it's quite optimistic. It survived and it is cured while still adding new features, and it's quite well-established project now. GlassFish dual extension, I mentioned that I rewrote the logging system. Many things were fixed. Omnifish Piranha. It is not passing yet all TCK tests, but it's improving. Yeah, there's GlassFish family, because sometimes people think that it's easy to just kill GlassFish and go away, but there are many other projects which forked GlassFish and distribute it on their own. Payara is a bit specific because it doesn't depend on on GlassFish anymore. It was forked yet at the Oracle time. I did something like them too, but I was just a single person, so I ended soon. And it is forced to use the original license, so there are some issues between sharing the code between GlassFish and Payara. If they want to contribute back, it's additional work for them. Then there's Piranha Cloud, Inforsuit, another Chinese fork, and maybe more. We don't know about all of them. Okay, what's happening next? Oh, 25 minutes, not so bad. To do. GlassFish 8, Jakarta 11, Java 21. We have to write some performance and load tests to see how it, what is the advantage of virtual thread, especially what we can do with them, and what are possibilities with optimizations based on the fact that Java 21 will have them, because it can change the overall performance and dependencies with communication between components of GlassFish and your applications too. GlassFish domain XML currently is just limited for few threads and half gigabyte heap or something like that. We could probably create or maybe change even this one. I'm not sure. We have to discuss that yet. We need also some stability test. I mentioned test containers, what is possible to do with them. It will be interesting, especially for me, how it would behave under serious conditions. Everyone works with clouds. There are two networks, sometimes virtual, sometimes not. Anything can happen. And the GlassFish server should be prepared for that and somehow resolved or help to resolve these things. Yeah. GlassFish still has the old, well-known UI based on wood stocks, which is not maintained anymore by anyone. It is based on very old JSF, and we managed, or at least our contributors mostly managed to fix it, so the UI works again, but it's quite expensive to maintain it. Recently I worked with JavaFX for some customer, and it brought me to some ideas. Maybe it could be useful to create JavaFX application. Maybe it could be used even from cell phones. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yet another thing related to JavaFX. Did anyone try to use JLine? That's tool in Java 17 made. It is present in Java since Java 17, and it is capable to use module info files to resolve all your dependencies, not meaning like Maven jar files, but meaning packages, really packages and services, and collect them and create binary containing just what you really need. It's quite interesting. It starts quite fast, and then it just works. It works on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, and it's quite interesting. I was really, I hated the module info files first, but now it seems it has some targets. Okay, visions. GlassFish 2040. I think everyone has doubts what will happen until 2040, but we can just dream about what could be possible, because like 10 or 15 years ago, GlassFish was something like ugly, huge monster, slowly moving, not just meaning development, but it was slow in production, too heavy. And now you have seen that it starts in 3 seconds. Even in cell phones, you have more memory than servers at the time. And now it's not big anymore. Everything changes. And I have seen some cars use Microsoft Windows as a system under their computers, why there could not be Java. Everything is integrated somehow. I don't know what are possibilities. At least it must be secure. That is the first thing to do. Okay, auto-tuning is another interesting thing. In the cloud, you can configure that your server infrastructure will auto-balance somehow. There is different traffic at night, different at noon, and maybe even GlassFish could be able to react somehow to different conditions, to different traffic. So you will not pay so much for 10 application servers in clusters when you need just one. They could just disconnect or reconnect, redistribute load between them. There are even much more complicated configurations to consider, and maybe GlassFish could be more flexible to allow them. Yeah. And I'm by the end, and let's go for questions.
Yes, I've got 2 questions. Maybe the first one, you presented like the script at the beginning where you fixed this tab interface. Is this available open source?
I will write blog about it and push it outside. It's not something like a standardized tool. It was really created for one concrete project and then updated for another. But as an example, it could be used. Yeah, I will save that. That's not the word, but sorry. I will write about it on Omnifish blog.
Okay,
maybe next week.
It's about the snag tool. I've never used this before. Why should I use it? Because if you are public on GitHub open source, but also the security tab, you also get information for the keys.
Yes, but I think they use a bit different sources. I'm not sure. I didn't go too deep into that. I just was registered for years there, and at some point they sent me email. I discovered that it's just click on the button and you have report what you should, and then I found it's quite useful. But I know GitHub does something similar, or maybe even uses that. I don't know. I don't know now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does GlassFish reuse other existing web container like Tomcat or Jetty or Undertow, or does it have its own? And which deployment models does it support?
Deployment modules. As GlassFish was originally the referential implementation of Jakarta EE, so it supports all of them. It's really full of these things, and it uses parts of Catalina, but from 2003 or so. But I don't know what was the history, but I think they cooperated at some point of time with Apache, and they used components from Tomcat, and then it diverged.
Yeah, so the history was that the original GlassFish was developed at Sun Microsystems, and then they donated it to the Apache organization. They still kept using it themselves. And then indeed, as David mentioned, it's gone off into separate directions, but the code is still there. The big difference is that in GlassFish, the HTTP implementation is done by a project called Eclipse, which is a highly optimized Neo-based server.
Louder.
Something else.
Louder.
Is under there, yeah.
You speak louder.
Oh, I speak a bit louder. Okay, so sorry. In GlassFish, the Tomcat code, Catalina, which implements the servlet bits, uses Grizzly as the HTTP implementation. And Tomcat uses their own software, so that's the difference between them.
Yeah, I was asking if there are a product on the market like a key clock which can integrate with most web containers. So if you want to use key clock for SSO, for example. So I was wondering what's the status for GlassFish in this case?
Yeah, so probably Keycloud would integrate with GlassFish, since it is its own identity.
Okay.
I don't have microphone, so you have to scream a bit.
How much developers are concurrently working on GlassFish by itself?
Currently, it's Omnifish company basically. Fujitsu company contributes, and we have something like 5 contributors. We don't know if they are employees of some company or they contribute on their own, but they work quite intensively. At least 2 of them are really active.
Yeah, because the question could be works the other way around. How much developers are interrupted when some refactoring or refactoring breaks something?
Sometimes, no, it doesn't break. Yeah, it can happen, always it can happen, but we always run the whole TCK thing before the release, and it really 60,000 tests are capable to cover quite a lot of things.
Yes, indeed. It's about, if we look at the statistics, it's about 5 to 6 core developers and then a number of additional developers. It's about the same level of committer activity as PR, slightly more than TOMEE to make them compare, not to make them look bad or anything, but just to have an indication how we compare to the other well-known servers.
It is increasing slowly.
So, it's important that we always run all the tests. So that's basically one important part of the presentation. We investigated a lot in how to better run the tests. We invested into making the tests better and more tests. So that's indeed the factory.
Also, if we do something larger, we usually create the draft PR so everyone sees what we are doing and everyone can scream, "Oh, I did nearly the same." But once we executed the script, removing white spaces or fixing tabs, it's not so complicated to rebase. It usually, if there is conflict, it's just few lines and you go on. So, thank you, and I hope I will see you next time somewhere.